Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment of our show brought to you by the Topoco Lodge. Whatever type of getaway you are looking for, adventure or sanctuary, you can find it on the 120-acre mountain and river footprint of the Topoco Lodge. They've got suites and rooms available at the lodge. They've got private cabins available if you prefer that. The Topoco Tavern is open, though it's limited in terms of the capacity, of course. So you need to call with reservations. But boy, just a beautiful place. If you want to do the kayaking, fishing, mountain biking, they've got it. Or if you're just looking to get away and enjoy the mountains, Topoco Lodge, great place to do it. Check out topoco.com to learn more. Okay, Friday the NCAA took one of these PR steps I've been talking about, granting all fall sports athletes an extra year of eligibility and an additional year to use it. So if you opt out this year, doesn't matter. If you play this year, doesn't matter. In other words, get ready for Jarrett Garantano 6 years and Brandon Kennedy 7 years. Technically, it's possible now, in theory. I think it's nonsense because they did this for the springtime athletes and Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin. This is not a small school. The University of Wisconsin said, we can't afford to do this. We can't afford to bring these kids back. So the idea that because the NCAA has okayed this, that now every fall sport athlete is going to be welcomed back to every university, I don't see it. I don't see how, when we just did a segment showing that UT is losing 30 to 40 million at best case scenario, 30 to 40 million. Yeah, let's bring all these kids back.
Plus everybody coming in.
Yeah, I just don't see how this happens. So you guys give me your take on whether or not this was just for show, or if you believe, I think it's probably going to be hit or miss, but then you run into troubles. We want you back and you back, but you get lost. And what happens when you say, we want the football players back, but you volleyball players can go? Then you're going to get into lawsuits, Title IX. Are you buying this? Because I'm not.
I mean, it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Application, like you said.
Yeah.
The possible fallout from this is kind of unbelievable. I mean, you hope that the schools will say, you know what, we're going to make the students the number one priority, and we're going to, whatever it takes to do, we're going to do that. Also, I have some beachfront property in Idaho, if anyone's interested. But, it's one of those things that there's no easy solution to this. It's the right thing, but, you may have a bunch of players that transfer down a division, maybe go to either an FCS program or go to a G5 program and play with their extra year eligibility. I just think we don't know what the effects are going to be. And, I think it just boils down to the right thing to do, but application is impossible.
And it's Philip Fulmer now hand tied because UT came out and said in the spring, we're going to do this for our athletes. Bring them back. Okay. Now you're looking at losing tens of millions. It's a little further down the road now. You got a better idea of how much money you're losing. And now, if you're doing it for spring, you're going to have to do it for all. If you say all spring people can come back, aren't you going to have to say all fall people can come back? Or does UT have to revisit that? And that's just one school out of dozens, but there's so many manholes just laying around for people to step into on this. Vince, right thing to do. Do you buy that it'll happen?
I buy that it'll happen, but as David mentioned, the application of it, the execution of it, there's just so many issues with it. What about the adjustment of the 85? Jeremy Pruitt, when he was asked about it this week, said, well, there's no way. They got to adjust it. Okay, how do you adjust it? What other sports do you match that up with, especially with Title IX? So can some of the smaller schools afford it? Who gets pushed out? Because ultimately the price is going to be paid, just like customers in everyday life, and in our world, customers end up paying. The kids ultimately will end up paying some of them down the road. It's just so many issues. It is a mess, but it was the right initial move. They got to follow up on it, the NCAA, and help these schools out instead of just saying it's your problem now.
Josh, you cover recruiting for WNML, and technically for us. There's a huge issue with this too. I mean, right now you got kids who their recruiting process is bizarre to begin with, but what about a kid that's looking at Tennessee saying, I'm going to go there because I'll have playing time as a freshman? And then all of a sudden, 3 seniors can come back for another year. I think there's a recruiting element to this as well.
Yeah, the next couple of years I think are going to be really fascinating. This year with recruiting, and then what happens over the next couple of years, what do coaching staffs look like? Do you hold on to coaches that maybe you don't want to, but then the next year he's let go, and then prospects get on campus and they didn't really want to go there, or they weren't sure? I mean, think about how many players might end up signing that either haven't visited a campus that they're currently committed to, or it's been a long time since they did that. So I think over the next 2 to 3 years, there will be huge ramifications with roster management. We're already seeing a lot of transfers anyway.
Yeah,
And if you have the one-time transfer allowance, the next couple of years could get wild.
It's going to be a tsunami
Yeah.
of transfers. Once they pass that 1 year thing, if you're talking about kids who wind up someplace that they didn't get to visit, it will be like pro sports free agency for a couple of years coming out of this, is my guess.
And with this roster cluster that you could be seeing in college football, one of the ramifications I wonder is if more people are going to try to push the NFL's rule of entry into the draft of early entry and say, hey, this is our situation. You got to let us in younger. Now, it hasn't worked in the past, but I wonder if there's a larger group that tries to push that rule that maybe the NFL considers it, especially considering they can't judge their talent as much. That's another ramification of all this.
All right, we got to catch a break. We're going to do a couple segments here. Don't know if you've seen this yet. Came out late in the week. Athlon, every year they go out and they talk to SEC coaches and get them to talk anonymously about different schools. We've got several comments from SEC coaches talking about Tennessee's football program. We'll break those comments for you down next. Come on back.